Buddy. Thanks for coming to our Tuesday trainings. Oh, and it's 3:30. So we can get going. So let me share my screen. And play from start. Okay. Here we go. Welcome to today's mini training. I'm Kayla from California Deafblind Services, their newest member, but I've now been here for over a year. So the training will be recorded, which I already asked you right when you came in. The presentation will be about 30 minutes, and then we have about 15 minutes to ask questions if we want to discuss anything, share any stories, and so on. If you have a question or a comment, you can use the chat box. I usually will try to read while I'm presenting, but if I don't, Julie or Brian will tell me the question at the end or during the presentation, whenever it's necessary. So you can raise your hand, but we will probably answer questions after the presentation. And then if you need to speak, you can unmute yourself, which is the microphone at the bottom of the screen. You just have to click it to unmute. And today I do have some resources for you guys that Brian will be putting up on our website, and I think we'll even be adding to the chat box at the end. Oh, okay, let's see how I go to the next one. Oh, clicking, okay. So, signed communication. The last Tuesday of every month, we are going to be focusing on sign language. So here's this cute little image of hands, finger spelling hello, and welcome. The first 3:30 to 4:15 will be in English, and then from 4:15 to 5, we will do the same session in Spanish. So if you prefer Spanish, you can join that one. If you know anyone who speaks Spanish and also wants to talk about sign language, that is the one to join. So what we're going to talk about, we're going to talk about how to implement new signs, total communication, and then we're going to go over some basic signs that usually are probably the higher priority signs, the ones that children usually learn more in the classroom, etc. So I found this image a little bit ago, and it just says all behavior is communication, which I just think is so important for people to always remember with children. Whatever behavior they are showing, they are trying to communicate something to you, and it's so important to use that to start figuring out what signs you should teach them to really get the communication going. So I try to make a little visual of what we should be looking at when we are trying to figure out what signs we should be teaching our children or students. First, it's to observe them. It is so important to really see what they need, what they want, what are their preferences. Next is just repeat, 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 repeat. Because if you want a student, especially a student who is deaf-blind, to understand an entirely new concept, you just need to be extremely repetitive with them. And then next is to demonstrate. Make sure that you're demonstrating how the sign goes, however they need to understand it. If you need to do it in their hands to show them, do some hand under hand prompting, or just a visual of you doing it, whatever is the best way for them to receive that information, you got to demonstrate it. And then prompt. Then we're going to talk about the different kinds of prompting. So Be the example, fade prompting. Okay. So you need to give the opportunities to practice. Um, so meant to in the last slide talk about examples. Let's see if I can go back. Oh, cool, I can. Um, okay, so let's talk about prompting because this is something where you need to go in with more prompting and then, kind of fade out that prompting. So, how I usually like to explain it, the most extreme prompting is like a direct physical prompt. Um, so let's use, for example, if a child wants to eat, um, to or they want more food, because more is a really big sign that people use. It's like two flat O's with your hands, and then you put your fingers together. But we'll go over that towards the end. So when you're sitting down and having a meal with a child, every time, if they're eating and then say they slow down and you want them to ask for more, you know, you show it first and then you're going to, maybe you need to have their hands hold on to your hands to sign more. Maybe you need to do a touch cue where you touch their elbows to get them to move up to sign more. Um, and this is really like the direct prompting to really start it. And then you can also do direct verbal prompting where you're saying, "Oh, do you want more?" Like you sign more, like giving them the direct instruction to sign more. And then once they start, they don't resist when you go to sign more, or they're starting to show some sort of understanding, then you can start fading it a little bit. So next would be an indirect way of prompting. Um, so they're eating, and then maybe you kind of move the food back a little bit, and then say, "Oh, are you still hungry? Like, what do you want?" Where you give them the opportunity to again sign more. And then sometimes, there you kind of juggle with what works best for the student, because sometimes I'll start doing indirect verbal prompting, but then I'll still give a touch cue. If they still need me to like touch the elbows or the wrists, something to keep telling them you want them to communicate, but still fading out so they have that area to be that time just to become more independent, giving them that opportunity to become more independent. Um, and then again, just keep fading out until it's more independent. And I know I say this all the time, but I love the 10-second rule of waiting for them to communicate to you. So again, you take away the meal and you indirectly verbally prompt by saying, um, like, "Oh, do you want more? Like, what do you say?" And then just stop and count to 10 and wait. The silence is so awkward at times, but it's so good to give that time for the child. The child is now sitting there like, "Okay, well, I want my food," and they're not doing anything. They're just staring at me like, what have they done before that gets me my food? Um, and it takes time to respond, especially again for children who are deaf blind. And we just need to give them that time. So, count to 10, let them get there. Um, okay. So, again, opportunities to practice whatever signs you want them to be learning. You need to give them the opportunity to sign those. So if you want them to sign more while eating, if you let them finish their meal and then you take it away and say, "Oh, do you want more?" And then they say more, and you're like, "Oh, well, you're all done." You've lost the opportunity, and then that's confusing to offer something that you can't give. Uh, so, which kind of leads me to that you always need to respond. So don't give the opportunity if they aren't allowed the opportunity. Um, I see this a lot when it's time for work and someone will offer like, "Oh, do you want to play with your ball?" And then the child will say yes, and they're like, "Oh, but it's time to work." And it can be um, really frustrating for the child who's trying to, they're communicating now, but now you're not giving them a positive response back. And so without that positive response, they're not really learning to use that language because they're not really getting anything out of it. Um, and once a child really starts to see, when they sign something like more or food or bathroom and they get it, it's like a light bulb goes off in their head and they're just like, oh, if I say this, I get what I want quicker. Um, so it's just really important to, make the opportunities and respond to them communicating all the time. Because then eventually you can then more explain, like if you go to sit down at work and then they start signing play or signing all done, then you can start to have a conversation with them of, oh, like I see that you're telling me you want to play or that you're all done. First, we're going to do work and then we're going to play. So, you have to keep the conversation going, keep the communication open. Um, it's just important to really try to get those practices happening a little bit more easier for you. Oh my gosh, clicking the arrow button is not the right one. I get beeped at. Um, so total communication. So I always like to bring up my student that I used to be a one-on-one aide with. We use total communication with him, and for him, so I would verbally talk to him while signing with him, while using his assistive technology device and using any tactile objects when necessary. Um, so total communication is really giving the student multiple ways of communicating to, whatever way they're going to receive it. And then whatever way they're going to express it, it's just, kind of giving them any opportunity to communicate with us. Um, so this student, even though he is nonverbal, he does still listen to you, uh, but he definitely signs. So, and his signing has continued to expand. He now signs 3 to 4 word sentences. Um, but if he doesn't know how to sign it, he might use his assistive technology device. Or there's different areas in his life where the device is more useful. But then also tactile objects and cues also really help him. Like trying, getting him to go somewhere, you might sign it and say it, but he still might need a little gentle touch cue to like start walking up the stairs because he really hates stairs. But if he knows he's going to get something at the top of the stairs or at the bottom of the stairs, he'll go. So we need to give him every way to communicate so then he can express it back to us. So these are some signs. So first, we are just going to talk about these signs, or I'm going to show you these signs. Um, I'm sorry, we're going to talk about these signs and then I'm going to show you them with my video. And all of these images, you will receive a worksheet. You'll receive a 1-page handout with all of the links. And all of these websites, they either have a search engine where you can search words. They have images like this for you to print or look at. So this is just ways you can learn sign or look up words. But all of these pictures I have seen in a lot of different classrooms, especially one like this where it has the word at the bottom of the page of the picture. Um, because then this is just great because, they're still kind of getting some literacy in there. They're reading a word, seeing the sign. Some people have even added Braille to it if they want the child to also be learning Braille. It's really whatever the child's needs are. But this is the sign for more. And this is a sign. I mean, I feel like this sign gets used very frequently in the classroom because it's very easy to start implementing. If a child is doing something they want to do, like if they're swinging or if they're playing with a ball or with a light or some sensory items, and you want them to start signing more, you take away that positive reinforcement and you start prompting them to say more. And again, you're going to start with the direct prompting of, you know, you're going to show them the sign, tell them the sign, maybe help them physically do the sign. Um, and at first, when they sign more, then you're going to give this stuff back to them right away. So they need to kind of, at first, it'll be a little bit slower at first, um, but you're really teaching the child from the get go that when they sign more, they get it back. So, depending on the child, you're going to repeat this for a while. You're going to stay on this step of you'll take the toys and then say, "Oh, do you want more? Let's sign more." Have them sign it and then give the toys back. Once you feel like you've done that enough, um, then you start, go back to the next, which is more indirect prompting, where it's like, "Oh, do you want more? What do we say? Or what do we sign?" Um, and then again, wait those 10 seconds because it might take them some time, um, to kind of formulate all that's going on in their head. So give them time to respond. And the second they sign more, um, just respond, positive praise, give them the positive reinforcement back. Um, And if everyone was here, or if anyone was here for last week's training, we were talking about the different signs and how, like where children are physically, how signs might look a little bit different. And this is a sign that, is going inward and hands are connecting. And this can be hard. If children are having a hard time connecting their two hands together, this sign might look a little different. So you are also going to have to really observe the child again. And if you see, I mean, I would say if you see any motion of like a hand coming in, even if it misses the other hand, any action that might look a little different than what they usually do, but they might be trying to sign more, use it. If they sign it, get praise, give them the praise, give them the positive reinforcement, um, and just really work from there. Because even if it's, at first the sign might not look, like the perfect more, practice will make permanent and it will just get better and better. All done is another sign that tries to get taught a lot, but is a more challenging sign. Uh, but when a child is all done with something, they usually will let you know. And if you don't want them to be telling you they're all done by throwing their papers off their desk or ripping them, this is a very good sign to start teaching. So it's with your hands up and then you flick them out. Again, I'll show this once I go through all the signs. Um, but this is actually a great example of at first to let them know that you're understanding their way of communicating, you need to let them say all done and you need to respond to it. Even if it's an assignment they have to get done or they're saying all done all the time, you can use this as like, "Oh, you're all done. Okay, well, we can take like a 1 minute break." Give them some sort of visual or tactile clue that this is happening. Um, we're going to do a break and then we're going to get back to work because you don't want them to say all done and then they're just never doing work. It's important that they say all done. They know that we understand what they're saying, um, And we do need to respect that, because if they are saying all done, we need to find a fun way for them to want to do their work. Oh no. Okay. Um, Next is help. This is another tricky one, but this is one that it's just very helpful for students to be able to ask for help. Uh, so it's a thumb, and you put it on a hand, on your other hand, and then you lift both hands up. So I will show that again once we have the video. But help is a great one because children will sometimes ask for help in ways that, of that if they are pulling on your like pant leg, or, yelling to get your attention. This is a great quiet way to ask for help. Eat. This is wonderful signing time. Probably one of my favorite ways for children to learn sign language. This lady has a bunch of songs, resources, even on YouTube. She has some songs that are just so fun to watch and listen to. Um, so, signing time, great resource. But again, I put the website on the handout. So, this is Eat, where you put it's a flat O, like if you make an O with your hand, but then you kind of flatten it out and you put it towards your mouth. Um, this is, if your child is not on a G tube, this is a huge reinforcement for a lot of children. It's not too hard of a sign. And if they are feeding themselves, they are able to get their hand to their mouth. And eat is something that a lot of children really love to do. And if they're really hungry, they will find a way to get to that food. So this is a great reinforcement to, if you have goldfish crackers or something and you want them to sign eat instead of more, or eat into the schedule, have them sign eat before giving them the food. Um, will definitely be helpful for them. Uh, this is the sign for hurt. I could not find a good picture for it, so it's a YouTube video. But again, she actually, let's see if we can watch it. We got time. Let's see if it totally takes us away. Do you guys see the YouTube link?
You point.
No, we don't, Kayla.
No? Okay. I will stop sharing and then reshare right here. So this is just a 17-second video.
Put one finger at the other, or you can twist them. You can show where you are hurt. My head hurts. Where do you hurt? My tummy hurts. Where is your owie? Mine's on my elbow. Now it's your turn.
So, oh gosh, I stopped it and I didn't. Let's see if it's going to keep going. Okay, let's escape that. Let's go back to the presentation. So that is signing time. Again, I love her. She talks slowly. She wears band-aids on her fingers to show what fingers she's using during signs. Clear background, usually images, words, and very clear. So, huge fan of her. Okay, and then bathroom. This can be different depending on what the child is capable of doing or what your goals are for the child. To go to the bathroom, you do a T and you shake it. And then diaper is, it's like you're saying no, but showing the diaper on your hips. And this, it's really just like a preference of what you prefer. If your child is in diapers and you want to explain that you're changing their diaper, you can do that. Or if you're bringing the child to the bathroom, um, you can have them sign bathroom. Uh, the good thing with bathroom is that you can eventually try to get them to ask to go to the bathroom, but that's a whole nother learning session of potty training. Um, okay, next is water and drink. Again, these are two where it just kind of depends on which one is more beneficial for your child. Water, it's you're doing a W with your hand and putting it on your chin, and then drink, you're holding a glass and drinking from it. And then those are all the resources that will be sent out to you. So I'm going to stop the share and then just go back. So now I'm all big in case you need the signs again. Oh, wow. End show. So the signs that we did. So first is more. And so flat O. So this is an O. And then a flat O, you just kind of flatten it out. So that's what you use for more. And you bring them together, more. So if you want to do more of like the touch cues or something, you can put your hands, under their wrists to bring it forward. Maybe touch their elbows. If their hands are down, you can touch their elbows to bring their arms up to sign more. Um, I love hand under hand prompting. We very strongly suggest hand under hand prompting. It's just not so invasive, where you'd put your hand underneath and bring their hands together for more. Okay, next sign was all done, where you just go like this. I've seen it done in different ways depending on the child. Um, some students, they'll go like this. They'll just keep saying like, all done, all done, all done, get me out of here. Some like it more like all the way across. I like to call it the dramatic all done, that they are just not doing it anymore. Um, Next is help. So it's the thumb and the hand, and you go up. So saying that you need help. And eat, definitely a favorite sign always. Who doesn't love eating? There's an ability awareness that I always like to do, and I tell people to turn off their voices and then tell me that they're hungry. And most children at some point will do this. So I would like to say most children, that's a pretty easy sign for them to learn, because for a lot of children food goes in their mouth, but if food does not go in their mouth, then that's not going to be a high priority sign. Again, think about the child, observe what they need, um, what their communication goals really are. Okay, I keep going away from my slide. Okay, hurt, you got the beautiful video. um, Again, this is a sign that I've seen adapted in many ways. I had one student that kind of had a whole, like he had his hand would be in a fist, and then his other hand would sign hurt. So that was his way of signing hurt. Um, Even though this is the way to sign hurt, but his whole team knew that that's how he signed it, and it was something we worked on. I mean, we knew that the sign wasn't right, so we did keep trying to teach him, fine motor skills on his not dominant hand to try to get that sign eventually where it was supposed to be. Because he did have a lot of headaches and stomach aches, and so we wanted to make sure we had a successful way of him being able to communicate that to us. And bathroom and diaper. So bathroom is this. What I'm liking about bathroom is that a lot of general education classrooms have started using this as like a way, like a child can raise their hand, and if the teacher calls on them, they can just do this and the teacher will dismiss them right away. So it's kind of becoming a more used sign, which is nice. And then diaper, which is on your hips, but it's uh, these three fingers. So it's like you're saying no, but on your hips, showing the diapers. I'm assuming those are, like the clothespins, or, whatever used to be used on diapers like a million years ago. No, I'm kidding. Not a million years ago. um, and then water and drink is kind of with food. if you have a child who really loves drinking out of a water bottle, maybe you can try water. But if, just like drinking any sort of liquids, juice, milk, water, maybe you want to teach them that. Again, it's so important to just really go off of the child, because if we're trying, if we're teaching them sign language, we're trying to find a way for them to expressively communicate to us. So you want to make sure you're teaching them signs that will be useful, for them to be able to also communicate to more people. Um, I do know a lot of people, you kind of get a secret communication, a secret language with your child sometimes, which is great that you know what they're saying, but it's also really important to use um, a language that more people could more easily access. So, sign language, ASL is American Sign Language, so it's used all over America. And a lot of schools who have special ed classrooms that might have more students who are nonverbal, they they probably will know sign, and these will probably be the first signs that are being used more openly in the classroom. So I have made it to the 4 o'clock time. Let's go into gallery. Do we have any questions at all? I just see the resources. Um, Julie, or were there any other questions?
There's one question from Kimberly right now. What time does the Spanish class start? That's at 4:15.
Yes, that's right after this.
And Kayla, I was the only one that made a comment so far. And I thought it was interesting when you were talking about making the signs and accepting any approximation or gesture or movement the child makes, because it's similar to um, children who are babbling at first, and adults interpret what that means, even though it's not the real word yet. You know what I mean? So, but attaching meaning to behavior, like you said at the beginning.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I think any sort of positive reinforcement the child can get. Um, I have a niece who's starting to, she's getting to that age of speaking, but instead she likes to scream. And when she screams, her parents know what she's trying to say. So they're like, "Oh, you want this? Here you go." And it's kind of interesting because it's like, well, but if you don't want her to scream, you shouldn't be like reinforcing the screaming. So then they started signing with her, and more was the first one that she did. And she does it. I mean, she will choose signing over screaming any day. I mean, every time there's food or um, her favorite song is on or TV show or whatever it is, it's the second it's done, she's just like, "Oh, more." Like she definitely had a positive reinforcement to sign more and then get more. And she picked it up so fast. And I felt like the second they introduced it, she kind of just like jumped on that train right away. Oh, and I do think what Brian just said is important, that the Spanish class or session will also be in this room. So we will not be leaving. But if there are any other questions or um, discussions, any child that has been learning sign language, does anybody have ways of their child learning sign language that has been really helpful that they'd like to share?
I'm going to stop recording so people can ask and answer questions.
Thank you.